There is a moment every parent fears, the moment their child says something that cannot be explained. For most families it is a strange drawing, an imaginary friend with a specific name, a reference to a place the child has never been. For the Hendersons of rural Vermont, it was something far worse. Their 4-year-old son James sat across the breakfast table one Tuesday morning, eating cereal, and said without looking up, "I remember how I died." His mother put down her coffee. His father stopped breathing, and James, calm as if discussing the weather, told them exactly how it happened. The road, the rain, the truck that came from the left side, the color of the sky in the last moment. Then he looked up at them, and said, "I was 31. I had a daughter. Her name was Lucy. Is she okay?" What the Hendersons discovered over the next 2 years, documented by researchers, verified by police records, confirmed by a woman named Lucy, will make you question everything you think you know about death. This is the true story of James Henderson, and the life he should not remember. James Henderson was born in March 2017 in Burlington, Vermont. His parents, David, a high school history teacher, and Rachel, a pediatric nurse, described him as a quiet, serious child from the very beginning. Not sad, just thoughtful, the kind of child who watched the world carefully before deciding how to respond to it. He spoke early, full sentences by 18 months, which Rachel noted in his baby book with quiet pride. His vocabulary was advanced. His memory was extraordinary. He could recall conversations word for word, describe the layout of places he had visited once, remember details that most adults would have forgotten within hours. His parents were pleased, proud. They thought they simply had a gifted child. They were not wrong, but the gift was not the one they imagined. The first sign came when James was 2.5 years old. Rachel was giving him a bath when he suddenly went still, staring at the water, and said quietly, "I used to have a bathroom with blue tiles." Rachel smiled. Their bathroom had white tiles. "Did you?" she said. "Yes," James said, "in my other house." Before, Rachel assumed he meant something from a book or a television program. Children absorbed images constantly. She thought nothing of it. 3 months later, David was driving James to daycare when they passed a truck on the highway, a large commercial truck, the kind that carries freight across state lines. James went completely silent. Then, in a very small voice, he said, "That kind of truck." That's what it was. David glanced in the rearview mirror. James was staring at the truck with an expression David had never seen on his son's face before. Not fear exactly, recognition. "What do you mean, buddy?" David said. James said nothing more. He turned away from the window and did not speak for the rest of the drive. That evening David mentioned it to Rachel. They looked at each other across the kitchen. Neither of them said what they were both thinking. Not yet. That thought arrived 5 months later, at the breakfast table, on a Tuesday morning in autumn, when their 4-year-old son put down his spoon, looked at the wall, and said, "I remember how I died." Rachel's first instinct, the nurse's instinct, was to stay calm and ask gentle questions. "Tell me about that, sweetheart," she said. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. James spoke for 11 minutes without stopping. David would later say it was the most unsettling 11 minutes of his life. Not because James was distressed, but because he was not. He spoke the way you, or I might describe a movie we'd seen recently. Detailed, clear, emotionally flat. The way memory sometimes is when enough time has passed. He described a man. He said the man's name was Robert. He said Robert was 31 years old and lived in a town he called Millhaven. He described Robert's house, white with green shutters, a porch with a broken step that Robert kept meaning to fix, a kitchen where the window above the sink looked out onto a large oak tree. He described the night Robert died. A road he drove every week, Route 9, he said, with absolute certainty, though he had never in his, for years of life, been told the name of any road in Vermont. It was raining hard. November, late. The truck came from the left, crossed the center line. Robert saw the headlights coming and had time for one thought. What was the thought? Rachel whispered. James looked at her. "Lucy," he said. "I just thought Lucy." Rachel left the table and stood in the hallway for 5 minutes, pressing her hands flat against the wall, telling herself to breathe. Then she came back, sat down, and asked the question that would change everything. "James, do you know what town Robert lived in? Do you know what state?" James thought about it seriously, the way small children do when they want to get the answer exactly right. "It was cold," he said, "like here. And there were mountains. And I think," he frowned, "I think it started with a V." David opened his laptop that night after James was in bed. He searched, Millhaven, Vermont Route 9 truck accident fatality. The first result was a local news article from November the 14th, 2014. The headline read, "Local man killed in collision on Route 9. Robert Allen Marsh, 31, of Millhaven, Vermont, David read it 3 times. Then he called Rachel in from the other room and showed her the screen. They sat together in silence for a very long time. David and Rachel did not go to the media. They did not post on social media. They were private people and they understood, with absolute clarity, that what they were dealing with required care. They contacted the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, one of the only academic institutions in the world that formally investigates cases of children who claim to remember previous lives. The division had been founded in 1967 and had documented over 2,500 such cases globally. A researcher named Dr. Patricia Holloway flew to Vermont in the spring of 2022. She spent 4 days with the Henderson family. She interviewed James, gently, carefully, using techniques developed over decades specifically for young children. She recorded everything. James did not falter once. He described Robert Marsh's house in specific detail: the green shutters, the broken porch step, the oak tree outside the kitchen window. He described the interior layout of rooms he should have had no knowledge of. He described a scar on Robert's left hand from a childhood accident involving a bicycle. He described a specific coffee mug that Robert used every morning, blue, with a chip on the handle, a gift from Lucy. Dr. Holloway drove to Millhaven. The house was still standing. A young couple had bought it 3 years earlier. She knocked on the door and asked if she could look around. Green shutters, broken porch step, still unrepaired, oak tree behind the kitchen window. Dr. Holloway showed Lucy a photograph. Not a photograph of James. A photograph of James' drawing. A drawing he had made at age 3 that had been sitting in a folder in the Henderson home, that Rachel had saved without fully understanding why. It was a drawing of a man. Lucy looked at it for a long time. Then she said, "That's my dad." She had never seen this child, had never heard of the Henderson family, had never spoken to anyone about her father's accident except in mandatory grief counseling 8 years earlier. She was crying before she finished the sentence. The meeting was Rachel's idea. Dr. Holloway advised caution. These situations required extraordinary care, a child's psychological well-being, a grieving teenager's emotional state, the potential for either profound healing or profound harm. They spent 6 weeks preparing, consulting child psychologists, consulting grief counselors, making sure that whatever happened, both James and Lucy would be protected. They met on a Saturday afternoon in a neutral location, a community center in Burlington, arranged to look as casual and comfortable as possible. Toys in one corner, comfortable chairs, sunlight through large windows. Lucy arrived with her mother. She was 15, tall, with her father's eyes according to photographs, and red hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was visibly nervous, pale, hands twisting together. James arrived with David and Rachel. He was 5 years old now. He walked into the room, stopped, and looked at Lucy across the space between them, and smiled. Not the uncertain smile of a child meeting a stranger. Something else. Something that made every adult in the room go absolutely still. Lucy's mother pressed her hand to her mouth. James walked across the room to Lucy and stopped in front of her. He looked up at her, this 5-year-old boy looking up at this 15-year-old girl, and said, in the most ordinary voice imaginable, "You cut your hair." Lucy had worn her hair long until she was 12, had cut it short after her father died, had grown it to shoulder length again only recently. There was no way a 5-year-old boy, in Burlington, Vermont, could know that. Lucy knelt down in front of him. Her hands were shaking. "Do you know who I am?" she whispered. James nodded. "You're Lucy," he said. "I thought about you. At the end, I thought about you." Lucy held that small boy in her arms for a long time, and she wept in a way that her mother said was different from any grief she had seen before. Not like losing something, but like finding it again. James patted her back patiently. "It's okay," he told her. "I'm okay. I just wanted you to know." Dr. Patricia Holloway's report on the Henderson case was submitted to the University of Virginia in late 2022. It is currently the most thoroughly documented case of alleged past life memory in the division's 55-year history. 47 specific details provided by James Henderson were independently verified. Details about the house, the road, the accident, the family, the scar, the coffee mug, all confirmed by sources James could not have accessed. 0 details were found to be incorrect. James is 7 years old now. He speaks less about Robert Marsh than he used to. Dr. Holloway says this is normal, that in cases like these, the memories tend to fade as the child grows, as the current life fills in and the previous one recedes like a dream upon waking. He still remembers Lucy. He asks about her sometimes. Rachel tells him she is doing well, that she finished school, that she is happy. James nods, satisfied, and goes back to whatever he was doing.